Since League started, Garen has been known as the no-skill champion. I mean, whether you're spinning to win or just one-shotting the enemy backline, Garen basically plays himself. So I decided to find out for myself if he was really that easy. First, I decided to look up the most common build and runes for Garen, as well as a description of his abilities. You just want to build things that make you go fast, while also giving you some decent damage and tank. But his abilities, oh boy. I mean, I knew champions were getting more complicated, but comparing Garen's abilities to a new champion like Kazoom's is just ridiculous. I mean, looking at the difference between their ults, Garen's is a simple true damage execute where he yells, "For the cause!" And Kazoom's needs his own freaking Spark Notes page, because there is no way I'm reading all of this. But anyway, after my initial research was complete, I was ready to jump into my first game. Okay, so after my first hour, I realized something very important about Garen. I way overestimated how broken he is. So after my first games, I realized I might need to do a little bit more research on how to play Garen. So I did what anybody would do, and I went to YouTube. I found several decent guides, but the channels that stood out to me the most were Lol Dobby and Damacium Replay. Lol Dobby had an in-depth look at the rank 1 Garen, and Damacium Replay has high elo gameplays of every Garen matchup you can think of. Links will be in the description if you want to check them out. I ended up learning a lot from these videos and this challenge altogether, and I'll address the 3 biggest tips at the end of the video. So my next game started off a little rough again because I may or may not have forgotten to buy items, which ultimately led to me getting tower dove. But as I started to remember things I learned in the videos, I could feel myself getting better at the champion as the game went on. And my next game was even better than the last one. So with the basics of Garen mastered, I knew I had to take these newfound skills into ranked. And I lost immediately. Okay, so I know this looks bad, but I think it's safe to say this first 15-minute loss was not entirely my fault. And I lost again. But despite losing this game, I actually played super well, which was a surprise considering I was laning against a Teemo, whose poison constantly resets Garen's passive timer, which makes it a little bit harder for him to sustain in lane. After Teemo made the first several minutes of laning hell, I eventually got to the point where I could just kill him straight up. I then went on to do pretty well throughout multiple fights, and I really thought we were going to win the game. But as with many League of Legends games, teammates started to get tilted, and players like Hecarim tried to make these hero plays that ultimately led us to losing the game. But much like the duality of man, I managed to win my next game even though I played pretty poorly. Despite getting a lot of help, I fought really poorly against Mordekaiser by just running at him because I thought my lead would be enough to win fights. The main reason we ended up winning the game was because Ivern was doing God's work out there, putting the entire team on his back. I mean, he did all of this while also making the entire team look better, and even though we won, I knew I needed to improve a lot if I wanted to reach Diamond with Garen. Everything started falling into place around hours 6 and 7. The first game, I killed Tryndamere under his tower, setting behind, got first tower, built full armor against a mostly AD team. We then got some cool picks like this, which led to more kills like this. And then the rest of the game was pretty easy, just punishing their bad calls and winning fights. The game got a little bit scary when Master Yi almost got a pentakill and a dragon, but luckily I still had my ult, and with Master Yi gone, the rest of the fight was a really easy cleanup. Coming off the high of a dominant win, I thought this was gonna be the start of a beautiful win streak. My next game was derailed by an early gank that set me pretty far behind, and then it went even more downhill after I forgot Tahm Kench could do this. And then after that, it was just a series of unfortunate deaths in a game that was pretty much already over. The last game in hour 7 was pretty boring. I was against a volley, and we basically traded kills back and forth top while the rest of my team won the game. Nothing really interesting happened, but I knew if I wanted to hit Diamond, I would need to start dominating my games to finish out this challenge. That means no more dying to silly ganks, no more deaths under my own tower, no more failed ults, and definitely no more getting cheesed under tower. So my first game ended up going pretty well. I got greedy for a tower plating and died to a gank. Then I got a gank, killed Jace, and got my tower shortly after. Got a cute little surprise kill on Katarina that led to a 1 fight and a dragon a little bit later. And then turned into a Beyblade, won a huge fight, and then won the entire game. This next game was probably the worst game of this challenge. I died to an early tower dive because I greeted for a siege minion. Lee Sin and Katarina gave my lane opponent a double kill. Lee Sin had a failed gank top lane and then pushed my lane in, but didn't help me shove it under tower, so I ended up getting ganked by Diana 30 seconds later. Then I got 4-man dove top on my way back to lane, and at that point I got super duper tilted. Even after Lee Sin miraculously stole Baron, I still felt like the game was over, and in the end, Katarina and I chased way too far and ultimately just lost the game. After that game, I definitely needed a bit of a breather because I wanted to end this challenge strong and see how far I could climb with Garen. So when I came back, I was ready to win the last 2 games of this challenge. And this was not going to be easy because the first game, by 18 minutes, my team wanted to surrender because Rengar had 14 kills, 5 tower platings, and 2 towers. But I was not going to let this stop me. And after winning that game, I thought I could do no wrong. But the last game actually turned out to be super interesting. You see, I've never played against a Skarner top before. I've heard the stories, but I've never taken them seriously. So I was super surprised that after winning early game, I just got pulled under tower 3 times and died over and over and over again. Eventually, Elise ganked my lane, we got 2 towers, which allowed me to leave lane and start winning fights, and then we won the game, but let me tell you, I will never underestimate a Skarner top ever again. So in the end, I went 7-4 with Garen with an average KDA of 6, 4, and 5. I ended up gaining 89 LP, ending plat 4 with 89 LP, and I learned a lot of things about Garen. He has great sustain in lane with his passive, but it means you have to play pretty safe sometimes. He shreds squishy champions. His mid game is amazing, especially if you are at least even or ahead. His wave clear is super efficient because of his spin, and your base stats are high and his play style is simple, which is very good for new players. However, his damage is not as high as some other champions. He has no ranged abilities, so in hard matchups, it could be difficult to get some CS. He has no real escapes, which means if your wave is pushed into their tower, you either have to play super safe or roam. And last, his late game sucks because he doesn't have a high impact ult, he's not a hyper carry, he's super easily kited in late game team fights, and he's not quite tanky enough to be a super reliable tank. The 3 main tips I learned with Garen are: 1. Short trades are broken. Your passive allows you to recover from trades way faster than your opponent, even if they were pretty bad trades. 2, you want to save your W as much as you can. Your W gives you a lot of survivability with tenacity and damage reduction, but since it has a 23-second cooldown for most of the laning phase, if you panic and use it too soon, you're very vulnerable to all-ins or getting dove by the enemy jungler. 3, don't use your Q to just run at your opponents. Garen is best when your opponent walks into you so you can Q auto reset and then spin to disengage so they take damage if they chase you. You then out-sustain them with your passive, and then eventually you want to go in on your opponent with your Q, but only after you have a decent health lead. And for the bonus tip, we have the runes. You want to take Phase Rush into a matchup that's ranged or has a good escape so you can stay on top of them. And you want to take Conquer into matchups where you're just going to fight to the death, like Scion and things of that nature. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It would help me out a ton because I'm going to come out with more content like this in the near future.